If you've played Princess Peach Showtime, you've probably noticed that it's easy, like really easy. We're talking the average Kirby game looks like Dark Souls in comparison levels of easy, and that's fine, but it makes you wonder if there are really any powerful foes to discuss. Fortunately, Grape's ensemble of dastardly supporting villains doesn't slack off in terms of power, so it's time to rank the most powerful foes on Peach's radar. I'm Kifinosi with One Up Binge, and you'd better make sure you got plenty of sparkle for these baddies. This is Princess Peach Showtime! Enemies, including bosses, weak to powerful. Grab your holy glitter glue and get ready for the show, but we're starting slow with the game's least intimidating foes in the C tier. Oh, yeah, spoilers for the game, obviously. Taking the bottom spot are the sweet zombie Thets. For the record, the enemies in this game are almost never given official names, so we're doing our best to get creative with the majority of them. These guys are an interesting case, as they're not unique enemies in their own right. Rather, they're Thets influenced by the dark magic of a witch in the second Patissier stage. While they might seem menacing, that's probably just because they look a lot angrier than your average Thet. In all honesty, they're still pretty much harmless, and all they need is to eat some good cookies to cease their darkness-fueled rampage. Who said video game enemies can't be relatable? Up next, we have the previous entry's power source, the Sour Witch. While this sour sorcerer only appears briefly at the beginning of the level, he's responsible for the zombification of the Thets. Usually having an army of zombies at your command would be a pretty big boost to your power level, but the zombie Thets aren't concerned with anything but eating good sweets. As such, their head honcho isn't all that much stronger. Taking third to last place are the masked sour swoopers. Referencing Kirby again already, you know Brontoberts, those little pink bug-looking things that fly around? Yeah. These are basically the same thing, just mean little bird guys who get in Peach's way. To their credit, they have pretty impressive leg strength, able to carry cookies and Thets away with relative ease. That is, until Peach catches them, rather easily I might add, and defeats them in just one hit. All in all, not a super impressive show of power. Where's the style? The elegance! Look to our next entry, the Sour Skaters. The Sour Skaters' goal is to steal the spotlight from the regular figure skating ensemble of Sparkle Theater. Their form is it's a form. They'll hurt you if you bump into them during one of their signature spins, but if you can find an opening, and you definitely can, you can twirl them off of the rink pretty darn easily. We're sure he'd hate to be placed so low, but next is the rival figure skater. This guy might be kind of a jerk, given how he's the head honcho trying to steal the figure skating spotlight. Alongside being bigger and stronger than the smaller skaters, this elegant adversary can use his own dark energy to bring Thets along for his skating performance. He's strong enough to bully others around, but like the other skaters, he can easily be stopped when Peach finds an opening in his performance. Of course, unlike most of the other enemies, the rival figure skater doesn't seem to want to hurt you, just upstage you. But either way, it's not happening today, buddy. Sorry. If you've ever played any stealth video game, you know why the ninja guards are so low on our list. While they're big and brutish, they're also video game security guards, which means that if you're outside of their flashlights, they won't be seeing you, and furthermore, won't be doing you any harm. And trust me, you have to practically be trying to get spotted by these guys. Even if you are though, they usually just sound a horn that prompts you to teleport away for a bit. They definitely can hurt you, but it's pretty difficult to get them to do so. Now it's time to move on to the more impressive supporting antagonists. These are the B tier threats. First up, we have the Sour Boo Bats from the second act of Sword Fighter Peach's performance. Really, they're basically what you'd expect from a bat enemy in general. They can be annoying, swooping down on you when you least expect it, and oftentimes they travel in large groups to overwhelm Peach. At the end of the day though, they're basically just the Sour Swoopers, but harder to avoid, and only by a little bit. Solving the mystery of our next entry, we now move on to the museum culprits and clock bombers thwarted by Detective Peach. While these guys are nowhere near the most competent criminals you could find, they're not to be underestimated either. They not only managed to break into a high-security museum to almost steal an ancient artifact, but they almost succeeded in an act of domestic terrorism by blowing up a clock tower. If they weren't clumsy enough to find poor hiding spots and often straight up give hints as to how to stop them, we'd place them higher, but sadly, their greatest enemy is their own brain. Man, is that ever a mood? Now we move on to the Masked Swordsmen, probably remembered as the first enemies you encounter, and sensibly, they're about the simplest ones. They're little dudes with swords who bully people around with them. We won't place them lower because swords are pretty darn sharp, but we don't place them any higher either because they don't have any other tricks up their sleeves. The same can be said for the Masked Bandits. They're basically the same as the swordsmen, but instead of swords, they use guns. They're still taken out rather easily, but props for their ability to use the guns with pretty decent aim while riding on horseback. That takes some skill and guts, and we applaud them for it. Now we have the tirelessly trained Dark Kung Fu students. The underlings of the Dark Kung Fu master, who we'll get to later, mostly spend their days bullying the students of the local teacher, and also kidnapping his kids on one occasion. Now you might think that dark magic plus kung fu would be a pretty dangerous combo, and while you're right, to an extent, you wouldn't know it from these guys. They go down pretty quickly, and oftentimes end up knocking their own pals out like dominoes. The ones who can use stabs are harder to land hits on, but they're still nothing to be too fearful of. If you thought the other enemies were out of this world, wait until you see the extra sour terrestrials. Aliens have invaded the planet, and only Mighty Peach can stop them. Thankfully, she can stop them with relative ease. Like most other enemies, these aliens are far from durable and usually go down in a few hits. That being said, we give them some extra points for their ability to summon tractor beams that restrain the Thets, even if they probably could have just carried them off instead. Next up, we're keeping a sharp eye out for the sour spear guards. Usually found fighting alongside the masked swordsman, these guardians are an absolute upgrade. They're much more durable, given that they have a spear in one hand and a mighty shield in the other. You'll need to time your attacks carefully to get a hit in on them, which makes them notably more formidable than most of their peers. Rounding out this category are the Grape guards. Seen exclusively in the final battle against Grape, these are enemies we've nicknamed quite literally. They're little grape guys who exist solely to guard their master, and impressively, they can take quite a few hits from Peach's sparkling bullets. They don't seem to have much autonomy of their own, given that they just literally orbit Grape and absorb damage for her, but a shield has just as much value as a sword, so we're willing to give them some respect. Now, could you please just summon a few less of them, Grape? Instead of suffering through the barrage of guards, let's move on to the more formidable foes. This is the A tier. We hope you're all hungry because next up is the Dark Baker, tasked with watching over the pâtissier Sparkla. This ghostly chef is able to use his power to influence its victims to cook, allegedly, delicious treats. He's also pretty huge and attempts to sabotage Peach and Stella by jumping up and then trying to crush them with his girth, King Dedede style. Thankfully though, even he's no match for the power of Peach's delectable cookies. We kinda wanna try some now. Let's dive into the next entry, the Masked Mermaids. What they lack in physical power, they make up for in their influence. The Masked Mermaids can influence the creatures and objects of the sea with dark magic, most notably when they manage to turn a shipwreck into a ghostly weapon to attack Peach and company. They can easily be taken out with the power of song, or sometimes just being knocked off screen by a clamshell, but the potential of their magic is something to be wary of. If you thought the Spear Guards were tough, we'll do you one better. The Hammer Guard is even more terrifying. He has all the offensive and defensive capabilities of the Spear Guard, and then some. This guy's no slouch, and if you even want a prayer of taking him down, you'll have to counter his shockwave-producing attacks. But thankfully, he's surprisingly only a little more durable than his smaller comrades, so while he's definitely tougher, it's not by too much. The Sour Sword Specters are next up on our list, which might seem like a surprise given that they aren't really any more durable nor powerful than their corporeal counterparts, but that's just it though. These are ghosts. Ghosts with swords! While they aren't the usual unhittable type of ghosts you might be used to seeing, they can travel through walls and floors to get the jump on you, not to mention their ability to summon cages that force Peach to do battle. Hide your valuables, because it's finally time to talk about the dashing thief's adversaries, the Sour Thieves. It might seem like we're giving these guys too much credit since, like the Ninja Guards earlier, the Sour Thieves are harmless as long as you stay out of their usually predictable lines of sight. What's more, you can take them down pretty easily. With a single hit, they're basically out of commission. That said, they are a bit more observant than the Ninja Guards, and what's more, if they happen to spot you, their laser beams don't waste time when it comes to attacking you. The big guys are a bit tougher still, since they seem to be able to control different areas of their base, and they have a pretty impressive armada of airships. But they aren't the only formidable thieves. Enter the Sour Ninja. This guy may be small, but don't let that fool you. He's cunning enough to steal an ancient scroll from the dojo, and fast enough to rival Ninja Peach's top-notch speed. You can't beat what you can't catch, and while yes, you can actually catch the Sour Ninja, it takes a decent amount of effort and chasing by Peach to do so, and he's ultimately defeated by the collaboration of Peach and the Ninja Sparkla, earning him a respectable position on our list. Going back to the Wild Wild West again, we now have the Big Bully Bandit. If it's high noon and you're near this guy, you might want to just hightail it out of there. He means business. While his lackeys are tough, they're neither as strong nor as ruthless as their boss. He's able to fire at Peach with bullets and barrels alike, both of which will leave a mark, and only one of which can be countered to use against him. While he's definitely tough, which makes sense given his status as a mini-boss, Cowgirl Peach can still lasso him with relative ease as long as he's stunned, which keeps him from landing any higher. Though he is the first character to get that sick mid-boss battle theme, and for that we have to give him some credit. Our next spot tells the tale of the Dark Kung Fu Master. Making quite a presence in the first act of the Kung Fu play, this bully means business. He's fast and ferocious, able to take over the dojo with ease, and having plenty of goons at his disposal. He's also willing to fight Peach on even footing and even take a pretty brutal beating before being taken out. But even 3 of him at once aren't enough to win. That's gotta be some kind of deduction, right? We'll give a bit more respect to a one-on-one fighter, the Dark Sword Fighter. The first of many dark magic creatures guarding the captured Sparklas, the Dark Sword Fighter is every bit as tough as he looks. Literally made of gigantic armor and armed with a massive sword, getting hit by this guy is is not exactly a fun time. What's more, if you want to defeat him, you'll have to wait to counter one of his attacks, and it'll take multiple hits to get him out of the ring. He's also capable of teleportation, meaning that he can get throttled out of the ring and still come back for more. Next, we have the sour alien Squid. The smaller aliens pose a little bit of a threat, sure, but these guys are a lot tougher. They can move fast, capture multiple Thets at once, and fight both on solid ground and in air, even outer space. They can also endure multiple hits from Peach in her mighty form, which will remind you can lift cars and school buses like it's nothing. You could say they were practically made for intergalactic combat. And when it comes to the sour spacecrafts, you could say that they were literally made for intergalactic combat. We're using this as an umbrella entry for all the alien invaders' robotic comrades, from UFOs that threaten to capture with powerful tractor beams to giant rockets with rapid-fire energy beams. It takes a literal superhero to even put a dent in these guys. Let's not forget the big boxing glove robot who's so powerful that the only way to defeat him is by deflecting his own punch back at himself, and then using him as a wrecking ball against the other spacecrafts. And after all that, would you believe he's not even in the top category? These enemies are the most fear-inducing foes of all. They've landed in S tier. We weren't sure whether we were going to give the Dark Fireball Cannon a place on the list, but we decided to go for it. The aforementioned Dark Ninja used this cannon to terrorize the dojo and all that surrounded it. Given that it's literally a gigantic cannon that rains fire indiscriminately, we don't think we need to explain much as to why it's ranked so high. It takes a massive boost of power to knock it off of the roof and save the village, so while it's not the most complicated foe, you do technically defeat it, so it more or less counts as a foe. Yeah. It's time to talk about the first of the Darkles, the Projector Cat. Take the Cheshire Cat and throw it in a blender with that one cat and mouse boss from Cuphead, and you have the ferocious feline. Projector Cat seems to be the most cunning of Grape's underlings, sneakily attacking Peach right as she enters its territory. Like the other Darkles, Projector Cat is powered by a core made up of pure dark magic, and it seems to more so be toying with Peach than anything else, tossing around bombs like a normal cat would a toy and clawing at her with ghostly hands. This cat lands lower than its comrades though. Simply put, it's just not as powerful as the others. Disco Wing takes flight to the next spot on our list. While she's not the most eloquent speaker, Disco Wing can put up a pretty darn flashy fight. She lays eggs with purple chicks that attack Peach on sight, and it's only by using these little guys to pierce through her disco ball shield that you're able to do any damage to her. Not only does she have great defense, she's also got pretty good battle senses. She can swap the gravity of the room and sometimes uses this to confuse or even attack Peach. The most impressive example being her summoning giant blocks to try and crush her with. Oh, and she can also fly. We probably didn't need to mention that, but it's definitely a perk. We're going all the way back to level 1 for this next entry, the Sour Purple Plant. Its thorns spread throughout not only the king's castle, but the entire surrounding town, and only a mighty, skillful sword can chop them down. You'll need to get to the core herself to take out this plant, and that won't be easy. Like many of the ones we've talked about already, this mid-boss requires careful timing to counter its attacks and defeat it, and it has surprisingly a lot of health to boot. That's a feat list worthy of a spot just barely outside of our top 5. The final mini-boss on our list is none other than the Sour Castle Spectre. While a lot of the mid-bosses in this game are surprisingly intimidating from a power level standpoint anyway, this ghost is something special in that he controls an entire haunted castle. He can take away floor tiles to use as trapdoors, command his army of ghostly bats and swordsmen to attack at will, can summon cages that absolutely force Peach into combat with said sword fighters, and use whatever's around as a makeshift weapon or shield. All this on top of the added ghostly perk of traveling across walls and floors with ease. At 4th place is the penultimate boss, the legendary Spot Lion. First of all, I just want to show my appreciation to the folks at Goodfeel for giving us a sentient lion spotlight hybrid called Spot Lion. It's something none of us knew we needed, but we're glad we got it. Spot Lion is no slouch. That spotlight doubles as a deadly laser beam, and combined with his arena quite literally made of mirrors, there's sure to be little room to hide from his reach. There's also the little fact that the guy's a lion, in case you thought that getting closer would be easier. Oh yeah, did we mention that he can just casually, straight up clone himself in the middle of the fight? Quite a generous array of attacks. It's clear who Grape's favorite was, huh? But while his magic might not be as impressive, our bronze medal of power goes to Light Fang, a robotic snake who's all brown. With eyes that double as spotlights, if Light Fang sees you, you'll not only be swiftly attacked, you'll straight up be sent back in time. Or at least that's sure what it looks like. They really do gloss over that, huh? Well, Well, if that's not enough to impress you, Light Fang also uses its massive tail to make short work of the walls that surround you on your climb. The only thing keeping it from being any higher is the fact that, like the other Darkles, once you've gotten the dark magic core all sparkly again, it's pretty much harmless. But what if there was an enemy you couldn't defeat? That's right, it's the Dark Locomotive taking our runner-up position. What do all the enemies so far have in common? That's right, you can defeat them. Sure, the Dark Locomotive does crash and presumably disappear at the end of its stage, but that doesn't change the fact that you cannot defeat this train. And while it doesn't have any really fancy attacks, this train is malicious. It actively chases you throughout the level, finding spare tracks wherever it can to chase you down. It's truly a terrifying foe, and normally we wouldn't have any hesitation giving it the gold medal of power. But with that being said, we're sure that the main villain herself, Madame Grape, would be glad to hear that she's taken the top spot. Let's not split hairs here. While there have been many powerful dark magic foes in this list, Grape is the one who's responsible for all of them. She's the source of their power and ultimately calls the shots. But even if that weren't the truth, Grape can't even be approached in battle without the power of all 10 Sparklas turning Peach into Radiant Peach. A massively powerful transformation that makes her able to move faster and fire shining stars as projectiles. And even this isn't enough to defeat Grape. She manages to destroy the theater during her monstrous transformation, requiring Peach to transform even more into Super Radiant Peach. And it takes what feels like hundreds of gigantic sparkling lasers to defeat Grape. Now, call us crazy, but we're pretty sure 2 or 3 of those would have been enough to stop the Dark Locomotive, so congratulations, Grape. Your ultimate tragedy was a success.